What is up, everybody? We are on part 5 of the 5 catalysts of faith, talking about things that we know will cause our faith to grow. We started out talking about practical teaching, and then we talked about private disciplines, and we talked about having a personal ministry. And then last time we talked about providential relationships, people who God puts in our lives to help our faith to grow. The 5th and the final faith catalyst is pivotal circumstances. You see, when people talk about their faith journey or their faith story, they almost always will point to moments that are like defining moments in their life or in their faith or in their story. And sometimes these are good things like birthdays, or actually more like it's weddings or big events in their lives that cause change. Other times, these are not so good events, like somebody who they love dies or gets cancer, or a tragic accident happens to them, or they get sick, or something happens. And whether it's a good circumstance or a bad circumstance, it seems like there's certain pivotal circumstances that happen that can cause our faith either to grow as that circumstance pushes us closer to God, or sometimes those circumstances can literally derail our faith. Now, what we've discovered is that usually it's not the event itself that causes the erosion of somebody's faith, for particularly the events that take people out spiritually. It's their interpretation of those events. For example, you guys might have heard about a dude named Steve Jobs. Well, back when Steve Jobs was 13 years old, he was going to church, and he was a smart kid and already a good thinker. And so one day he goes up to his Sunday school teacher and says, "Hey, if I'm about to hold up a finger, does God know already which finger I'm about to hold up?" And the teacher says, "Well, yeah, God knows what finger he's going to hold up. God knows everything." So Steve Jobs pulls out this magazine, like a Time magazine or something, points to it. On the cover is these kids who are in Africa who are starving. And he says, "Well, does God know about these kids and what's going to happen to them?" And it seems like the teacher didn't really give him a satisfactory answer to that question. And according to his biography or whatever, Steve Jobs never went back to church after that moment. Now, I say that it's the interpretation of circumstances that makes a difference, because I've known of other young people, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, who saw those exact same conditions, who were literally in the conditions where kids were in Africa, were in the slums, were in poverty, were dying of starvation and malnutrition. And those kids, rather than rejecting God, what they did is they went on to spend the rest of their lives investing in doing something about it, making a difference, bringing clean water to those people in Africa, bringing health, becoming missionaries to go and bring the message of Jesus, to bring change into those circumstances. So it's not the event itself, it's how we interpret the event that determines whether it causes our faith to grow or causes our faith to shrink or potentially die. So what determines how we're going to interpret certain circumstances that happen in our lives? 2 things. Number 1, our worldview, how we see the world, how we interpret the world, how we view God in the midst of that. And number 2, the people that we're doing life with at the time that those circumstances hit. So the worldview part is a big deal, and that's why it's important for kids to regularly be plugged into church and into environments where they're going to understand the world from a biblical perspective. But then also, the people they're doing life with, that again, points back to you and the importance of your relationship with your students, that when they walk through pivotal circumstances or crazy circumstances in their life, will you be there to walk with them through it? When a kid's parents are struggling and on the edge of divorce, are you going to be there to walk with students through that? When somebody that a kid loves dies, are you going to be there to walk with them through that? I've known youth leaders who walked with students through the suicide of their best friend, and it's that youth leader's investment in that student's life, helping them interpret all those circumstances and pointing them towards Jesus, that helped their faith to survive crazy circumstances like that. And so I want to challenge you and encourage you that your role as youth leader is key, that you're in the life of students, investing in them, caring for them, listening to them, being there for them when they have crazy circumstances. So let me encourage you, when your students have big things happen in their life, whether good or bad, be there for them, cheer them on, celebrate them on the good things, and be there to pray with them and walk with them and talk with them through through the hard time. And as you do that, I believe God could use you to help students interpret circumstances in such a way that's going to actually cause their faith and their reliance on God to grow. Your role as a youth leader is super, super important. Don't ever forget that. Know that God wants to use you, and He is using you to help the faith of young people to grow. Thanks for doing what you do.